Okay, guys, so watch this video for May 2nd, which will be Tuesday. Pretty nice little pop in the SPY today. It's holding this area pretty well, but when you switch to 5-minute candles, you can see that today, here's the opening 5-minute candle, and then it was in a slow, I didn't extend these, probably can right now, and just a slow upward climbing channel all day. So if you're a day trader like I am, don't hold anything overnight, this is not a great environment for a lot of stocks that stand out, right? Really big moves and then a pullback that you can buy into, or big breakouts. It was just a slow grind higher. So I literally only made one call today, and I'll share that with you real quick. It was in SRPT. I actually drew the flag midday, but I called this a lot earlier than that. I called this literally, I'm going to go to, well, I'll leave it like this. On this candle, but before it got up to here, change my mind again. I am going to go to 1-minute candles just to walk you through my thinking on this one, okay? This one was on a gap play watch, but it ran right out of the open, right out of the gate. That's a trade I won't take. I don't ever like to guess, so it just came back down, took out the low of the day, took out the low again. Really nice bounce up to 15, and then took out the low again and again. And so I started thinking, okay, that's, this one is done. It's not going to run today. And then it started to get some volume. Let me start here. It started to get some volume back up near 15, and I told everybody if this gets to 15, it becomes interesting to me, so I'm going to start watching it. And then like a minute later, it popped through 15. And I always try to put myself in the mindset of the shorts, right? Shorts had to get pretty confident as this broke the low of the day, but then it did this pop to make them a little bit nervous, right? So it came down and then right back up, but then takes out the low of the day again. You get this pop back to 15, so they're still a little nervous. And then it starts to sell, then a lower high, and then it takes out these lows, and then the bounces are smaller, right? And then it takes out the lows again. And at this point, I think shorts are pretty confident that, hey, this gap's going to be filled. It's not going to break out and break its early highs, right? So then when I see this pop, now it takes out this, what I guess you'd call this a lower high, right? It took this out right here. So it became really interesting to me at this point because this price is not that far from a high of day break, which if you know SRPT at all in its recent action, a lot of shorts in it, and if this breaks the high of the day, there's a good chance it could squeeze. So when I get a lower high now, but it's taken out a couple previous lower highs, so it starts to get some volume, it's back through the whole number, it becomes very interesting to me, all right? I still didn't call it. I was watching it trade, and then this next candle, it pushed down to 15 and went right back up. And I said, you know what, guys, there's a seller at 15.10. If he gets taken out, this one might get through the high of the day and squeeze. So I called it over the mic, and it looked exactly like this, or it might have been down here, like not even up to 15.10 again. And I said, I like this at 15.12, 14.99 stop. And look what happens. So it triggers, doesn't come near the stop, and then after this pop, by the way, I said, oh, I really like it over 15.20. I think we get through the high of the day, and then that happened, right? And then it just took off. So switching to 5-minute candles, we caught this at 15.12 with a 13-cent stop, and you can see it ended up going over 18.12. It ended up moving up over $3. And as you saw earlier, I was pointing out the midday flag that this still looks good when it looked like this. Chance for a continuation, and just a really big move. So that's the kind of things we do in chat. That was my only call today, but I had to leave early to go to the doctor too, so keep that in mind. But as I just showed you on the SPY, it was in a slow channel upward, so there weren't a lot of standouts. So I was thrilled to get that SRPT call, which we added as a gap watch, as a watch on our gap playlist this morning in the pre-market. So that's how I found that one, if you're wondering. So here goes the list for tomorrow. STX, a nice narrow day today, but still a red day. I really like this for a potential bounce tomorrow. Didn't give me a trade today, okay? LGCY, I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. I do like this one, especially if oil catches a bid tomorrow. You had a really nice move, and now 3 days lower into the 8-day. Great bounce play set up there on LGCY. Keep an eye on oil. The shippers are interesting to me. Let me get this line off the chart. The shippers that went crazy on this day, probably because of PRGN, then it gapped up the next day, and now you've got 2 days lower. This is a good candidate with this crazy. This doesn't look like much of a move, but when you hover over the candle, you can see it had a low of 28 cents and a high of 266. So this started at 28 cents, and then the very next day gapped and ran to 394. That's a monster move. So you could argue this thing still needs to come in, but I do like the fact that it's getting down near the 8-day. And it had such a percentage move that after 2 days lower, after 2 red days, this one might turn and just squeeze again. So it's definitely one to watch. And on the same lines, dry ships, which if you DRYS, which if you look at the weekly chart, I really like this one. I'll zoom in a little bit. So you had this 2-week pop up to 726. Then you had a lower high here to 448, and then last week it hit 464, and on massive volume. So this looks really good over last week's high. I'll switch back to the daily. You can see it's still kind of extended from the moving averages. Maybe this needs to come in another day. Maybe it runs tomorrow. Maybe it never runs. Anything can happen. But this is a nice setup, just like PRGN, for a potential turn back up and maybe a squeeze again in these shippers tomorrow. ORIG, another low-priced oil play. I like the 3 red days down into the 8-day, revisiting the 200-day from above after gapping through it. Again, if oil catches a bid, this is one of the lower float oil plays that can rip higher. So I want to watch that one. First, Solar FSLR. Now this is an ugly chart, but gap down to the 200-day. Now you've got 2 more red days. I'm looking to the left here. You had a low back here of 52.51 back here, bounced off of 52.16. So anywhere near 52 is really interesting. It's still at 54.85, but whenever you get a gap down in 3 red days, this might have kind of a relief bounce tomorrow. So, or any day this week. So keep that one on watch. And again, it's just for a trade. DHRM. This doesn't look great, but when you switch to 15s, it looks better. I mean, this had this move here from $1.35 to 288 on an intraday basis. That's a monster move. You can see the volume spike. Excuse me. And it had a big move back here too. So switching to 15-minute candles, then it looks a little better to me because you have this big spike and you just have a trend line now. You just kind of flagging back up, over $2. This one might take out yesterday's high, maybe challenge these highs. So because it's a low float mover that can really move at times, it goes on watch for me for tomorrow for a bounce play. That's DHRM. I want to watch Apple. Couple bottoming tails here at support. Apple goes on long watch with a proper intraday setup. I think that one might get a nice move one of these days higher. UNXL is still kind of, I want to say flagging. It's you have to squint your eyes and blur your vision a little bit to call that a flag, but it really is, it's really holding up well after this big move, and then you had a lower high. It looked like it was rolling over on Friday and then right back up. So this over 260 is interesting. Then you might take out this 266 and then maybe challenge this recent high of 288, and above that, who knows, right? So it's a decent one to watch. GNC had 2 days down, looked pretty ugly. I mean, a huge gap down and a couple red days. Did bounce off this area. It bounced off of 2313 back here. But then today it gaps up. So my thinking was, even though this is an ugly daily chart, you might have some shorts caught. People piling in short. You got 2 red days, and then they wake up today and they're underwater. Especially anyone that shorted from Friday. So on a 15-minute basis, you can see I drew a line there. Get that out of the way. This is pretty interesting over today's high. So I like it over 26.15. I'm going to put that in my notes right now. 26.16. Again, if it beats it by a penny, doesn't mean it's going to rip higher. So keep that in mind. But that's an area to watch. You get over 26.15, it might revisit this high since the gap down of 26.88. And if you get up into that, get up above that, you're into the gap, and anything can happen. So this one's interesting, especially because of the gap up today. SCSS, had this gap up and ran, and then today put in a little bit of a lower high. So if it can take out today's high, 24.70, might just push through the high of the gap up day over 24.90 and maybe come up and challenge these highs. Okay, so it's far away from the moving averages, but I still want to watch it. And Smith & Wesson, SWHC, had a nice run today, closing at 22.84 on a little bit of elevated volume, but in after hours, it's trading at 23.68. So I'm going to watch this as a gap play tomorrow. And I'm not sure, you'd think I'd have done the research before I made the video, but I thought I saw somebody post that Ruger, RGR, had earnings. For all I know, SWHC had earnings. I haven't taken the time to research. I got a late start tonight. So RGR in after hours is trading at 70.15. So it's gapping up to here in the morning, or it could gap up to here in the morning, probably will. And so I want to watch SWHC. You could really trade either one, but Ruger, RGR is so thin, this is a better choice for a trader. So with it trading at, who knows where it's going to open, but let's just say it opens where it is right now, 23.70-ish. I'm looking on another chart. Yeah, it could be a nice gap and go play. So I really want to watch this one. I said last week it looked good on the weekly chart, like it's found support, and now with the gap up, this is a good candidate. A lot of people buying guns, so we'll keep this one on watch. As always, we will also work together as a team in the chat room to spot morning gap plays in the pre-market and build a gap play list, and we'll trade those if they set up the way we teach in the first 10 or 15 minutes, and then we'll also keep an eye on this list I just gave you. In addition to that, we'll watch our scanners and look for reversal plays and news plays as well. All right, have a great rest of your evening, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.